Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another video. I wanted to sit down today and talk about something that I'm seeing quite frequently in the media over the course of the last week or so, since Everton have been charged or have been referred to an independent commission because of a potential another potential P&S breach of the Premier League's rules. I'm seeing a lot of stuff on social media and in the news and in different articles that I just wanted to discuss because, in my opinion, it's not fair and it's not quite accurate, and it needs somebody to stand up against it and say, hang on, what's going on here? We're seeing a lot of articles in the media at the moment, and I know the big sort of named one that is being floated about a lot on X at the moment, or formerly known as Twitter, if you still call it that, is Jamie Carragher's article talking about how Evertonians should be focusing on focusing their anger and discontent towards Everton's previous board and Everton's owner for the mismanagement of this football club, as opposed to focusing on the Premier League. And since Jamie's article, there have been a lot of different media outlets and a lot of different journalists who have come out and said things similar to this, that Everton's focus shouldn't be on the Premier League because the Premier League are only following the rules, and it actually should be, Evertonians' focus actually should be on how poorly the club has been ran. I'm even seeing things from opposition fans like, how come Evertonians refuse to blame their club? How come Evertonians refuse to blame the board? It's always someone else's fault. It's never their own fault. They simply flat out refuse to blame Everton. And I just wanted to get it right, because that is absolute bollocks. And it may be the biggest load of bollocks I've ever heard in my life. If you go and look at any Evertonian social media page, whether it be ours, or whether it just be somebody that likes to write their opinion on social media after the game or during the week, if you go and look at any Evertonian social medias over the last 18 to 24 months, including ours, you will find a significant amount of posts and tweets and videos in our case, and various other different forms of discontent and anger towards the way Everton Football Club had been ran and the way the board were dragging us through the mud. Let's not forget that the reason that Denise Barrett Baxendale, Grant Ingles and Graham Sharp are not currently employed by Everton Football Club is because the fans protested that much and that vigorously and were consistent in their protests against those people that Farhad Moshiri had no choice but to remove them, leaving us in a position where we've now got effectively a non-existent board with a couple of temporary places and a couple of temporary positions of people that ultimately probably won't be there within the coming months. But the reason why those people are not currently in powerful positions at this football club is because of the fact that the fans displayed so much discontent and so much anger and so much worry about what they were doing to our football club that the owner was forced into a decision to remove them. And you know what? Had the owner have not removed them, and let's say in an alternative universe, had Everton had not received a couple of breaches of P&S rules, and had Everton had not been deducted 10 points this season, I'm willing to bet an awful lot of money that there would still be a large amount of Evertonians protesting against those people and their running of Everton Football Club. So let's get one thing absolutely straight right now. This nonsense narrative that Evertonians refuse to blame their football club and Everton fans need to turn their attention away from the Premier League and onto the running of the football club is complete and utter bollocks, because A, we've spent the last 18 to 24 months discussing the disgraceful mismanagement of this football club, and the majority of us have given our thoughts and opinions on the fact that we believe that those people needed to be removed and should have been removed a year or two before they eventually were. But secondly, the reason Evertonians are not now focusing all of our attention on the board and the mismanagement of the football club is because those people that are responsible for putting Everton in the position that we're in are no longer at the football club. the people that are currently at the football club, with the exception of Farhad Mashiri, in Colin Chong and a couple of other named people who are taking temporary places at the club at the moment just to act as a sort of a figurehead, they weren't involved with the mismanagement of this football club. They weren't responsible for Everton being in a position where we've potentially breached P&S rules twice and potentially face another points deduction on top of the points deduction that we've already had. Those people at the football club now are not responsible. And coincidentally, actually, it's quite funny, really, because one of the other football clubs that should be being investigated for breaking rules and should be being investigated for their overspending in Chelsea seem to have got away with it for the moment, because Todd Bowley has come in and effectively said to the Premier League, well, hang on, that wasn't me. That was the previous regime. That was the previous people that were in charge. So, you can't blame me. I ultimately haven't done anything wrong. Funny that. So should Colin Chong come out now and go, hang on, we shouldn't get a points deduction and we shouldn't get anything against us because it wasn't us, it was the previous board that have since been removed. So that is two reasons as to why Evertonians are now focusing the majority of their attention onto the Premier League. Firstly, because we spent 24 months focusing our attention on Everton's board and trying to get them out the football club and protesting and doing videos and making social media posts about how they were running this football club into the ground and how they were egotistical, egomaniac clowns who shouldn't have been anywhere near Everton Football Club. And those are words that I directly used towards the people in power at this football club. However, now, other than the owner, who is actively trying to sell the football club and probably won't be there himself in the next 12 months, if not even a shorter period of time, the next 6 months, every other member that was responsible on that board for putting Everton in the position that they're currently in has been removed or has since left the club. And therefore, why would we attack a board that isn't currently there? Yes, we all know and we all acknowledge, and my words directly to Jamie Carragher is, you're somebody that claims to live within the city, you're somebody that claims to have friends and family that are Evertonians. Well, my task for you is go into Liverpool City Centre and find me one Evertonian that believes this football club is being run properly. Go and find me one Evertonian that is willing to defend Denise Barrett-Baxendale, Farhad Mashiri, Bill Kenwright, Grant Ingles. Go and find me one, because you won't. You won't. And the reason you won't is because we all know how disgracefully mismanaged this football club has been over the course of the last 6, 7, 8 years. Some people would argue longer. And we've all spent the last 2, 3, 4 years, some people longer, protesting to get those people out the football club. So let's just curb that narrative right there, that Evertonians never blame the football club. They never focus on it being Everton's fault, etc. It's utter bollocks. And let me just remind you all that when we all were protesting against the board, and when us Evertonians were displaying our discontent at how poorly this football club had been run, and when we were expressing our concerns about Denise Barrett-Baxendale and Bill Kenwright and Farhad Mashiri, we were told by the majority of the media that those people are amongst some of the best in world football, and those people are lovely people, and you shouldn't be aiming your anger towards them. You should be aiming your anger towards the players and the manager. Those people just want what's best for Everton Football Club. Denise Barrett-Baxendale, one of the best operators in the world. So these same journalists that are now coming out and this isn't including Jamie Carragher, by the way, because Jamie Carragher did come out a year ago, and if he remembers quite rightly, he was backed massively by Evertonians when he come out a year ago and wrote an article about how poorly Everton had been ran. But there's other journalists that are now jumping on this bandwagon of, well, Evertonians simply refuse to blame the football club. Evertonians simply refuse to put any responsibility on those that were in charge of the football club. It's utter bollocks. And those same journalists were the ones 12, 18 months ago who were telling us how lucky we are and we should be grateful to have those people in charge because they're amongst some of the best in the world. And they were shit scared to say boo to a fucking goose when they were in place and when they were at this football club. But now suddenly, now they've been removed and now the Premier League are under scrutiny, all of a sudden it's fine to scrutinise them people and it's fine to say those people have done a bad job. Where were you 18 fucking months ago when we needed you to say that to help us get them out the football club, eh? And the only reason they're now saying it and they're now trying to peddle this agenda is because us Evertonians are focusing our attention on the Premier League, and quite rightly so. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. There seems to be this this strange narrative and this strange sort of agenda on social media amongst journalists and amongst people in powerful positions within football who believe that Evertonians can only argue one point and can only criticise one group of people. Just because we're criticising the Premier League for the treatment of how Everton have been treated. Nobody is saying that Everton Football Club haven't breached an FFP rule or a PNS rule, whatever it is. Nobody's saying that Everton Football Club aren't guilty. Nobody, as I said, go into Liverpool City Centre and find me one Evertonian that believes Everton Football Club haven't breached the current set of rules. Because you won't find one, because we all know we have. The point is the current set of rules are completely defunct, make absolutely no sense. The majority of them are made up on the spot. The punishments that follow those rules are made up on the spot because they never believed that they would ever implement them. So now they haven't to implement them. They're making punishments on the spot. The 10-point deduction has come out of nowhere and has been calculated on some nonsense scale that makes absolutely no sense. And they are there to protect those big six clubs who make the most money and earn the Premier League the most money and earn Richard Masters the most money, to protect them from any other football club being able to get into that and disrupt it and disturb the apple cart, if you like. Hence why Newcastle now, who are one of the richest football clubs in the world, and I will never stick up for Newcastle, by the way. If you've watched this channel for a period of time, you will know that I'm not a fan of Newcastle whatsoever. But Newcastle, who have got all the money in the world, the richest owners in the world, are now being told that they're not allowed to spend anything this January. Why? Why are they not allowed to spend anything this January? Because the Premier League are terrified that they might take that step up and they might breach that holy top 4 or top 6 or whatever it is for them. That is the point that Evertonians are arguing. And by the way, we are perfectly within our rights to argue that point. And we are perfectly within our rights to argue both points. And what these journalists are trying to do is trying to say, oh, we'll just forget about the Premier League for a minute. Let's focus on this. Let's focus on this. No, mate, because we focused on that for 18 months and you weren't interested in entertaining it because they were your mates and you liked getting into the game for free and you liked having your little interviews and all of that. So you weren't interested in having a go at Everton's board back then. You were only interested in telling us how brilliant they were. Now that they've been removed, you now want to focus your attention on them because Evertonians are now starting to focus our attention on the Premier League. And this is the overarching point, is these journalists are missing the point. Yes, Everton have broken a rule as far because we've been punished for it. Whether we've broken another rule, we'll wait and see after the independent commission. Yes, Everton have been found guilty. Nobody is disagreeing with that. And nobody is saying that the board have been ran brilliantly and the board deserve, to be given a pat on the back. As I've just said, these journalists must be idiots. They must be clowns. They're not. Really what they are is in the Premier League's pocket and they're terrified of having a go at the Premier League because it knows they may lose out on interviews and whatever else it might be. The reality is we can argue about the board being poor and about the mismanagement of this football club, and we have done, as I've just said, for 24 months. We've protested, we've had banners outside the stadium, we've had protests outside the training ground, we've had protests outside the live buildings. We've done all of that. Go back and look and do a bit of research before you write your nonsense articles. But we're also well within our rights to protest against the Premier League and how the Premier League came up with the points deduction that they came up with and how they deem that points deduction to be a sustainable way of punishing football clubs, because that is fundamentally wrong. And that is the point that is being missed by people like Jamie Carragher. Jamie Carragher's article is largely true. Everything he says about Everton's board and the mismanagement of Everton Football Club is absolutely spot on. But that doesn't mean that the treatment of Everton by the Premier League is also spot on, because it isn't. And I've used this example before and I will use it again. If you were in the park and you were walking your dog on a Sunday morning and your dog had a shit on the pavement and you looked at it and you thought, oh, my back's a little bit sore here, I can't be arsed picking that up. Do you know what? I'll just leave that, I'll walk away from it. And you get caught by a police officer and that police officer comes over and says, whoa, you've just left that dog shite on the pavement there, you've not picked it up, and you go, do you know what, I have, fair play, that's my fault, I thought I'd get away with it, my back's a little bit sore, whatever, expecting a slap on the wrist and maybe a 20 quid fine, and that police officer goes, right, that's it then. You've admitted guilt and you go, yeah, just get over and done with. Give me my fine and we'll move on. And the police officer goes, life imprisonment in a maximum security prison. You're not going to go, oh, well, I'm guilty. I didn't pick the dog shit up, so I'll have to take the consequence. Are you? You're not. And all these nonsense moles in the media and journalists and experts. Who gives who decides if somebody is an expert? Absolute bollocks. All these people coming out and saying, well, Everton admitted guilt, so they have to take the punishment and this, that, and the other, etc., etc., etc. You know, there's no arguing the fact that Everton have breached the rule. Nobody's saying they're arguing the fact that Everton have breached the rule in this example. There's no arguing the fact that this fella hasn't picked up his dog shit, but there is arguing in the fact that the punishment doesn't meet the crime, and that is exactly the position that Everton Football Club are in. The punishment does not meet the crime. Everton being deducted 10 points, putting us in a perilous position, potentially facing another relegation battle and potentially facing another points deduction, is not fitting of breaching a profit and sustainability rule because of payments on a stadium. It isn't. It simply isn't. And it especially isn't fitting. And this is another thing people in the media keep saying. You knew the rules. You knew the rules and you broke them. You signed up for the rules. You signed up for the rules. Find me the document in which Everton Football Club, be it Farhad Moshiri, be it Bill Kenwright, be it Denise Barrett-Baxendale, whoever it might be, find me the document in which Everton or somebody on behalf of Everton signed, which states if you go over FFP or PNS, whatever it is, by a certain amount of £1,000,000, you will be deducted 10 points. Find me that. Find me that document. All of these people coming out and saying you agreed to the rules, blah, 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 and you've broken them, so you deserve the punishment. Find me the document where Everton agreed to being deducted any points if they are in breach of a PNS rule, because I guarantee you it doesn't exist. We might have agreed to the rules, and we might have agreed that we'd be punished, but the assumption would be we'd be probably given a transfer embargo, we might be given a suspended points deduction, we might be told that we've got to reduce our squad, whatever it might be. Nobody would have said, oh, by the way, this is going to end in a points deduction, and Everton have gone, yeah, Sam, no worries. So there's a lot of context being missed out, and that is ultimately what the media and what journalists love to do. They love to write their stories, not include the full context, and paint a certain figure out to be the bad guy and a certain figure out to be the good guy, and ultimately that is what is happening here. And that is what is happening with this sort of obsession now, this ironic obsession with how poorly Everton have been ran, as if we haven't been telling you this for the last 2 years. You're telling us about how we should be protesting against the board. You're too fucking late, mate. You're 2 years too late. We've already done all that and since got the board removed. This isn't the same board. I'm not going to protest against Colin Chong because ultimately Colin Chong isn't responsible for where Everton are. I've protested against the board and they've been removed. And we all admit Everton have been ran disgracefully for the last however many years. So what we're now going to do is protest against the league for the punishment that simply doesn't fit the crime and how they came up with that punishment. It doesn't work in any other walk of life, does it? It doesn't work. You know, if you were employed in a workplace and you'd broken one of the workplace rules or whatever, there would be punishments in place for that, suspensions and potential wage docking or whatever it might be. You wouldn't walk into the manager's office and they go, do you know what? I don't quite know how I'm going to punish you today. Sacked. You wouldn't do that because every union in the world would say they can't do that, so you go and appeal that. And that is exactly where Everton are at the moment. The Premier League's rulebook may state that teams will be punished if they break PNS laws. They may state that the laws are stringent and should not be broken and should be taken seriously. That's fine, but what they don't state is what the punishment should be. And if we're getting into this position where you don't have to state the punishment, and if you break it, then it could be 10 points, it could be 50 points, it could be 1,000,000,000 points, it could just be a slap on the wrist if you're a certain football club in the top 6, then what's the point? What's the point anymore? Because as I've said, just because Everton have broke it doesn't mean that we should now accept that we're just going to get hit with point deduction after point deduction after point deduction, does it? That isn't acceptable. when teams like Chelsea have spent £1 billion and are just allowed to continue to do it. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So for all these journalists coming out and saying Everton fans should focus more on the board, Everton fans should focus more on how poorly they've been ran, you're 2 years too late, mate. And just because you don't want us to focus on the Premier League because that doesn't help your agenda and that doesn't help you, doesn't mean we aren't going to do it, because we absolutely are going to do it. And ultimately, that is what we're doing. And for any journalist that can't see it, you're blind to it, or you don't want to see it because it has a negative effect on you or your employee or the people that are paying your wage. And that is the fact of the matter. That is the fact of the matter. So there you go. Just wanted to say that. I was getting a little bit annoyed with myself on social media, reading a few things this morning, so I thought I'd just come on and do a video. We will be back a little bit later on with the game review to yesterday's win against Crystal Palace in the FA Cup, so don't forget to look out for that one. But until then, if you've enjoyed this one, please do leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new as well. Big thank you all for watching, and we'll see you later.